In 1947, in the New Mexico desert, an operator hears a strange signal on the radio that causes his dog to bark uncontrollably. The man connects a few more machines but is unable to understand the strange noise. So he contacts another station, which informs him that the signal is coming from Roswell. The operator takes the mom and the radio dog on a ride until he notices smoke and a light in the distance. His truck suddenly loses power, and the dog jumps out barking. The operator follows it and discovers the area is on fire with something strange in the center. He hears a noise and panics as he looks up to see a bright light. In 2003, a group of scientists in Antarctica discovered a strange object buried 5 meters beneath the ice using a scanner. Unsure what to do with it, they decide to send it to a NASA research station. Meanwhile, at the University of California, cryptologist Julian tries to teach his class while a student continues to flirt with him. Because he's ignoring her, she sends him a naughty email, but he simply closes his laptop. After class, Julian meets with Dr. Bachman, who has received a satellite image of the strange object discovered in Antarctica. It's so big that they initially thought it was a fossilized whale, but then they discovered a strange radio signal emanating from it. They have recorded the signal on a CD, which Bachman gives to Julian to study. A few hours later, Julian becomes obsessed with the signal's hidden meaning. It distinguishes between text and pulse groups, indicating that it is not random at all. Running a special software on the computer reveals that the signal has an impressive frequency, stronger than anything on Earth. Julian presents these findings to Bachman and convinces him to include him in the investigation. Meanwhile, in a research lab on the Falkland Islands, 2 scientists discover the strange radio signal and, unable to identify it, send it to an observatory in Arizona. Another 2 scientists notice the signal has been boosted and decide to send it to NASA. A few days later, Julian is on a plane bound for Antarctica. A raging storm causes the plane to shake violently, and the pilots are having difficulty preparing for landing due to low visibility. Fortunately, the base has bright lights, which the pilots use as guidance to land. The plane slides briefly before coming to a stop. When Julian finally enters the base, he is greeted by Nyla, who shows him around and introduces him to the boss, Dr. Gierok. Julian is then taken to see the mysterious object, which has been dug up but is still covered in ice. Following regulations, they are allowing it to melt naturally, but they have noticed that it is melting at an unusual rate. Both Gierok and Julian believe the object may be extraterrestrial. Julian takes a closer look, and when he touches the ice, a strange energy surges up his arm, forcing him to revisit all of his memories from the previous few days. Julian's skin turns red as he removes his hand. Julian is discovered by Dr. Kate, who turns out to be his ex. She doesn't think he can stay out of trouble, but she begs him to behave because this project is important to her. That night, Julian has a dream about something glowing inside the ice. He wakes up in the middle of the night when he hears a strange noise and comes out of his room to find a shadow lurking around and a lot of water on the floor. As he follows the trail, he feels something behind him and turns around, only for the mysterious energy to show him visions of the universe, the New Mexico incident, and strange creatures. Julian awakens again, unsure whether he dreamed it or not. In the morning, Nyla shows Julian their genetically engineered food experiment, which allowed them to grow corn in Antarctica. The temperature in the cornfield is quite high, so the team works in very few clothes. Julian notices Kate getting along well with Straub and becomes jealous. Meanwhile, a government agent and the Secretary of Defense are reviewing Julian, Gierok, and Bachman's profiles. Julian had previously gotten into trouble with a student, which is why he left teaching for a few years to work for NASA. That student happened to be Kate. They also examine the signal NASA shared with them and discover it is identical to the one from 1947. Julian devotes all of his time at the base to studying the signal, but makes little progress. He's joined by Communications Officer Grisham, who explains how he discovered the signal emanating from the ice. For lunch, the 2 go to the mess hall, where Julian meets the rest of the crew. They question him about his job, and Straub mocks him for believing in aliens. The crew later discovers that they are experiencing a communication blackout, which is common during a storm. Julian examines the object and is astounded by how much the snow has melted, noting that they can almost see the object itself now. Nyla believes she feels a low-level impulse in her joints, but when she tries to touch the ice, Julian warns her not to. The signal was not harmonic when Grisham discovered it, so it now contains 2 or more separate frequencies. Julian is unable to connect to the satellite, so he convinces Grisham to get him an antenna and connects his computer to it so that he can continue analyzing the signal. The next morning, the entire building shakes for a few minutes before the mysterious object falls from its hangars. The crew goes to check on it, and finally sees the object itself because there is little ice remaining. It looks like nothing they have ever seen before, and when Kate touches it, she receives an electric shock. They conclude that the object is igneous rock formed during an eruption, pointing to a meteorite. Julian believes the signal is a black box because it closely resembles aircraft retrieval data. As he rushes back to his computer, he explains his theory. This object accidentally fell on Earth and is sending a signal for help. Julian eventually deciphers a portion of the message using all of this new information and math. They still don't get it, and Straub mocks him for it. The group takes a snack break, and Straub insists that the idea of aliens is ridiculous, but everyone else agrees with Julian's theory. At that point, they are summoned back to the maintenance bay because a crew member discovered a crease on the object. The team discusses opening it, and Kate is concerned about potential viruses or other pathogenic organisms, but Straub points out that the labs are sealed, and they all agree to open it in the morning. Meanwhile, Bachman is summoned to the White House to discuss some terrible news about the mysterious object. Contacting the base is still impossible due to the weather, but the government has already allied with a Russian submarine and sent it toward the base, complete with nuclear warheads ready for launch. The next morning, the team connects the object to one of their machines via cables, causing an electrical reaction to neutralize the shocks. The object is still generating current inside, but they can now touch it without being injured. Then they use a saw to begin cutting the object open, revealing a softer layer beneath the tough exterior. Gyrok removes a piece from the object and confirms it is a carbon alloy that has been exposed to extreme heat. Julian's computer displays a constantly changing message, and he informs Nyla that the object is attempting to communicate. When Nyla says it's like the video game Mind Maze, it gives him an idea of how to approach the message, and after some trial and error, he finally manages to translate it. Do not open. Julian and Nyla freak out and rush to the maintenance bay, but they arrive too late. A glowing energy emanates from the object, causing the sawman to scream in pain. His body begins to melt, and an explosion follows, injuring several crew members and destroying the majority of the room's contents. It also shuts down the generator, which cuts power to the base until the emergency batteries take over. After gathering some flashlights, the remainder of the group heads down to the bay to check on the injured employees. Everyone is alive, with the exception of the sawing guy, who has burned to death. When they examine the hole the saw left in the object, they are surprised to find strange-looking organic parts. Pilot Tony pokes it with a broom handle, and the membrane begins to burn away until a new hole reveals what is truly inside the object, a frozen alien. They can't tell whether it's asleep or dead. Nyla suddenly says she feels sick, and her nose begins to bleed. She falls to her knees, and her face begins to melt as well. Soon, more employees begin to experience the same symptoms, leading the group to believe that a virus has escaped from the object and is now in the air, killing them one by one. Terrified, the few survivors flee into a sealed room to stay safe while watching the alien on security cameras. Grisham attempts to contact someone for assistance, but the communications are still down. Gyrok explains that a disease can slow down to avoid killing the thing it needs to survive, so the survivors may also be infected. While the group argues about what to do, the alien opens its eyes. By the time the crew looks at the screen again, the creature has vanished from the bay. They agree to go look for it and collect the guns brought by the pilots. Using only their flashlights, the crew begins searching the maintenance bay. Straub becomes alarmed when he feels something at his back, but it is only Kate. Grisham is also searching, unaware that someone is watching him from afar. It vanishes when Grisham turns around with his flashlight. The presence then follows Tony, who screams when he notices something moving in the shadows. As Julian tries to climb over some boxes to reach the next base level, Kate turns off the power in the rooms they aren't using and Julian falls. He recovers quickly and begins following a strange noise until he discovers the alien, who appears to be terrified. Julian lowers his flashlight and speaks softly, attempting to demonstrate his friendly nature. The alien slowly emerges and places its claws near the flashlight, absorbing its energy until it shuts off. The alien then approaches Julian and gently grabs his head with both hands, sharing the energy. When the alien's eyes open, Julian begins to see beautiful visions of the rest of the universe. When the others arrive, Straub orders Tony to fire his gun. When the bullet hits the alien, a powerful energy beam emerges from the wound, knocking Tony and Grisham down as they attempt to approach. When all of the energy has been expended, the alien collapses and dies, causing its body to disintegrate to the point of disappearance. Tony explains that he believed the alien intended to kill Julian, but he disagrees, stating that the alien's touch felt safe. It didn't turn into fear until Tony showed up. At that point, the White House discovered a hole in the storm and made contact with the base. Bachman explains that they are aware of the alien and the infection, and Julian assures him that the illness has not spread beyond the base. Then Bachman tells him about the New Mexico incident and the killing pathogen, which the aliens are resistant to. These creatures communicate with one another via telepathy and have already destroyed everything on Mars. When Julian announces that the alien has died, the Secretary of Defense decides that blowing up the base is their only option for eliminating the virus. He wants Bachman to lie to the crew and tell them that help is on its way, but Bachman refuses and only tells them that a Russian submarine is on its way. Julian reads between the lines and asks how many hours they have, to which Bachman replies 3. Straub freaks out and says he wants to leave on the plane regardless of how bad the storm is. Julian reminds him that they are infected and that leaving would spread the virus to the outside world, but Straub believes that if they were infected, they would already be dead. As the submarine approaches, the scientists perform blood tests to ensure they are not infected, though Julian points out that the new virus could be insignificantly small and hidden in the protein. Straub interprets this as a signal to leave, and Tony supports him, but the others do not. Kate's lack of support enrages Straub, who insults her while attempting to attack her, but Julian moves faster and knocks him down with a punch. Suspecting Straub and Tony will try to flee anyway, the others take Tony's gun and go around changing the passwords on the locks. In the Russian submarine, they prepare to shoot the nukes in 18 minutes. At the base, Kate and Julian finish changing the last lock and hold hands to console each other until they hear a shot. Straub and Tony have attacked Grisham in the mess hall and stabbed him in the neck with a fork. During the struggle, the gun is shot several times, with bullets striking the wall, ceiling, and Garrock's shoulder. When Grisham passes out, Straub and Tony grab the gun and begin running, while Julian and Kate return. Straub shoots again, hitting Kate in the shoulder. Garrock realizes the two men will flee through the drain pipes in the cornfield and sends Julian after them. Straub and Tony arrive at the cornfield after shooting down all of the locked doors. As they run, their mere presence begins to kill all of the corn, confirming that they are infected. Tony reconsiders and decides to stay, but Straub remains determined to flee and threatens Tony with the gun. When Julian appears at the window, Straub shoots first, but Julian ducks just in time. Tony uses the distraction to attack Straub and begin fighting him for the gun. Straub eventually overcomes him and shoots him down. Straub flees, killing every plant in the room as he passes. He tries shooting Julian several times, but always fails. Eventually, both men enter the pipes and quickly cross them to reach a massive set of stairs. The chase continues as they ascend, and Straub continues to shoot to no avail. When he finally reaches a hatch, he rushes outside, only to be trapped in an energy vortex. Julian also emerges, but an invisible barrier prevents him from proceeding any further. He tries to tell Straub not to move and to breathe slowly, but Straub refuses and continues to panic because he can't breathe. The energy gradually covers Straub's body and disintegrates him until nothing remains. Julian is gradually covered in energy, only to reveal new locations in the universe and the approaching nuke. Julian finally realizes the energy vortex is an alien spaceship that arrived to rescue the now-dead alien, and he rushes back inside to find the remaining survivors, Kate, Garrock, and a scientist girl. He opens the front door to get outside faster, and the others are initially wary, but they quickly understand when they see two aliens inside the vortex. The girl and Garrock go first, followed by Kate and Julian, who hold hands. The spaceship absorbs all four of them and flies away just before the nuke hits the base, destroying it. A few hours later, the government releases a cover story claiming that the base was destroyed by an experimental nuclear reactor and referring to all of the dead as fallen heroes. However, the 4 survivors are currently flying through space.